Hello everyone. Today we will practice how to create a user, how we create a group, how we can delete a user, how we can delete a group. So let me start Linux. Okay, if you don't see this desktop, click activities, open the terminal. If you can't find terminal, search TER. This is the terminal. Let me just zoom in with full screen. Okay. Usually the first step, I switch to the root. Why? So I have full admin privilege of executing any command. Switch user dash mean the root home directory. Type the password for the root. As you see, we are now in the root home directory. This is root. If we write pwd/root. If you forget the root password, as we said in previous class, you can change the password for the root by typing sudo change the password for the root. You type your current password, then you type the new password for the root twice. Okay. First, let's practice how we can create a new user. If I want to add a new user, or first, let's check. If we check the file password, passwd, sorry, /etc/password. These are the last 10 user accounts. As you see, this is the user account when I created or when I installed Linux. These are other user accounts created by Linux. So if I want to add a new user, we just use a simple command, user add. Let me create a new user. For example, Mike. This is the most simple way how you can add a user. Now, if we check the password file, you see now we have a new user added called Mike. The user ID 1001 belong to a group of the same name because it's the same ID 1001. This is the home directory created for the user /home/Mike. This is the default login shell for the user. So when you create a user, by default, a home directory is created of the same name of the user inside home. Also, it's added to a default group of the same name. Now, can we add a description for that user? Yes, when you create a user. So let me show you. If we, for example, add a new user, let's say, for example, Sarah, we use -c. We can add any description, for example, IT manager. Now, if we check the password file, here we have Sarah. As you see, the description is added. She is an IT manager. As you see, Sarah belongs to a default group of same, which is called Sarah, same ID. Can we add Sarah to a new default group, or can we change the default group for Sarah? Yes. How? Let me clear my screen. First, let's check what groups we have in the system. Again, tail display the last 10 lines. If you want to see all, you type cat. These all the groups I have. So for example, I have a group called, let's say, RBC. Can we make, this is the default group for Sarah, or we can create a new user? This will be the default group. Yes. How? Let me show you. User add. Let's add a new user. For example, Mike dash G small letter. Now I want the default group for Mike not to be Mike, to be, for example, RBC. Sorry, Mike already exists. Okay, so let me add a new user. For example, Jeff. So now, if we check the password file, you see here, we created a new user, Jeff. Look here for Mike and Sarah, the default group, the same ID, because a group already created by the system of the same name as the user. For Jeff, the user ID 1003, but it belongs to a group with ID 32, which is called RBC. So now we created a new user. We assign a default group different from the automatically assigned by the Linux. Can we also add this user, Jeff, to another group? Yes. Or let's create another user. We use user add. For example, Anne dash G capital mean Anne belong to other group. So Anne by default belong to a default group of same name called Anne. Also, I want Anne to belong to another group. For example, I want Anne to belong to the group GDM. Now, to check, let's display, let's say, cat. Let me clear my screen. Let's display the group file. Here, if we check, where is the group GDM? Just a minute. As you see here, this is the group GDM and is added to this group. So now Anne belong to a default group called Anne, and also Anne belong to another group called GDM. This is the difference between G small letter or G capital letter. So again, one more time, user add dash create any user, for example, Fadi dash G small mean the default group. If you want to change the default group, G capital, you change or you add this user to another group. Dash U, I can assign an ID for this user. For example, add a new user with ID 1111. Let's now check the password file. As you see, the user Fadi. Here, if you remember, the user ID was counting 1001, 1002, 3, 4. Now I can change the user ID to 1111. These are the 4 options when you create a user. Can you combine the options together? Yes, I can create a user, add a description, change the default group, and assign an ID all in one command. How you can change the password for a user? We just use the command password. For example, I want to change the password for the user Fadi. You can type your password for that user account. Repeat again. As you see, all authentication tokens updated successfully. Now, if we created a user, can we change the default group, the other group, the user ID? Yes. Here you use user mod. Let's modify that user. For example, let's modify the user Anne. Let's change her ID. As you see, the ID for Anne was 1004. Let's change this ID into 1104. If we check the password file for the user Anne, as you see, we change her user ID. Can we change the default group? Yes, you can. You can use, in this case, -G small with user mod, G capital to change the other group, C to change or to add a description. So for example, for Anne, I want to add a description. We use user mod. For Anne, let's change the description between double quotation. For example, full professor. If we check the password file, as you see for the user Anne, we change the description. So this is the other command, user mod. It used the same 4 options as the user add. The only difference, we use user add to create a new user mod when the user already created in the system. I just want to do changes. Now, if you want to delete a user, we use the command user del. For example, let's delete the user Fadi. That's it. Check. As you see, the user Fadi is deleted. What about the home directory for Fadi? Let's list what's inside the home. As you see, we deleted the user Fadi, but the directory for the user is not deleted. How I can remove a user with the home directory? We use user del -R recursive. So for example, let me remove the user Anne with her home directory. So the home directory Anne should be removed from the home. Let's check. As you see, the home directory for Anne is removed from the home. So -R mean you remove the user and the home directory that was created by Linux. This is the first part. Second part, how we can create a new group. So one more time, if you want to check what the groups we have, we can just display the group file. If you want to add a new group, you use the command group add. Let me, for example, add a new group called red team, for example. This is the most simple option. If we check, we can find this is a new group, and as you see, it is assigned an ID 1003. So I can add a user to this group to be his or her default group, or to be the other group for that user. What about if I want to add a new group, for example, blue team, and assign an ID? Here we use -G. If you notice, for the user add, we use -U. U mean user ID. Here we use -G mean group ID. For example, let me create a new group with ID 1115. Sorry. So if we check the group, as you see, we created a new group with ID 1115. If you want to delete a group, we just use the command group del. For example, let me delete the group blue team. And if we check, we can find that the group is deleted from the system. That's it. This is how you can create a new user, how you can delete a user, how you can delete the user and the home directory, how you can change the user ID, the default group, the other group, or add a description. We learned also how to add a new group, how to change, or how we can assign a group ID, and how we can delete a group.